The wind that swept across the storm-lashed battlements of Dragonstone tasted of brine and soot, a mingled perfume that had seeped into every stone since Aegon's day. Stannis Baratheon stood upon the parapet with his jaw locked, the collar of his black wool cloak snapping against the stiff cords of his neck. Beneath him, the narrow sea heaved like a thing ill at ease, with its own vastness, pale moonlight sketching ragged silver across restless crest. The night was moon-sharp, star-bright, but every point of light seemed to mock him, glimmering like the distant lanterns of a fleet he no longer possessed. Defeat, he told himself, was a wound that never truly healed. At Blackwater he had bled men, ships, hope. Yet pride, that iron splinter buried deep in his breast, would not allow the wound to close. The realm was shattered, its throne stolen by bastard boys and golden liars, while the one man to whom justice belonged lingered in shadow. Duty chained him to purpose as surely as any fetter. And still, by every letter of law, and by every word his stubborn heart could shape, he was the rightful king. Footsteps scraped along the ramparts. Sir Davos Seaworth emerged from the stairway tower, hood drawn low against the sea's chill. Candlelight from the passageway threw his lean face into planes of amber and black. The lamplight fluttered, and for an instant Stannis saw the glimmer of salt upon the smuggler's beard, as though sea spray clung to him like unrepentant sin. Your Grace, Davos said, inclining his head. Wind tugged at the gray streaks in his hair. You summoned me. Stannis did not look at him at once. He stared seaward, toward the east where dark water met darker sky, and only when the silence had stretched thin as a blade's edge did he speak. I did. What tidings from Lys? Chartered Cog returned this morn. Salator reports the Lyseni bankers demand double their interest now that King's Landing sings of Tyrell roses and lion banners. Davos sucked in a breath. Gold is dear, Your Grace. Dearer still without victories to reassure their purses. Stannis' mouth tightened. We have a fleet rebuilding in the yard, and the men pray for bread more than coin. Truth be told, the yards festered with half-finished hulls, and shipwrights who whispered of better wages in Old Town. But a king's voice must not tremble, even when propped upon brittle marrow. Voila, off the girl. Davos blinked. Princess Shireen is well, sire. Not my daughter, Stannis snapped, though a pang of guilt flickered behind his stern eyes. Dragon girl. The Targaryen. Here Davos hesitated. Rumors multiply faster than rats in the granaries. In Pentos, they claim she rides 3 beasts of flame. In Volantis, she is the Mother Reborn, breaker of chains. The Red Priests preach her name beside that of your own. Some say she marches on Meereen, some say she rules it already. Now. Why? Stannis turned at last. Some, he growled, say too damn much. Yet the name clung to him like sparks upon pitch. Daenerys Stormborn, silver-haired child of madness, or silver-haired queen of destiny. Blackwater had showed him Wildfire's green horror. The dragons promised a redder pyre. He did not believe in omens, save those hammered by flesh and steel. But Melisandre's ruby glowed brightest whenever the talk turned eastward, and the flames in her hearth painted dragons along the walls. As though summoned by thought, the priestess appeared at Davos' back. Melisandre's scarlet silk whispered over ash-gray stone. The gem at her throat pulsed with dull fire against the night. Your Grace, she said, voice smooth as warm wine, the dawn comes in many shapes. Some are forged of iron, some of fire. Stannis' eyes narrowed. Speak plainly. In the flames I beheld 2 pillars of light, one red as heart's blood, one white as a sword drawn in moonbeams. They moved apart, yet the world between them cracked like ice upon the Dragonmont. When the pillars met, the darkness fled. Melisandre placed a hand upon her breast. Azor Ahai reborn shall wield Lightbringer, yet Lightbringer may be greater than a single blade. A marriage of fire and steel. Fire and steel, Davos echoed, uneasy. Stannis' voice was iron. You counsel joining with the Targaryen whelp. I witness what the Lord shows me, she said, eyes gleaming. Stannis Baratheon is the chosen of Aralor. But even chosen cannot conquer alone. The smuggler's frown deepened. Your Grace, parleying with a girl across the world. A queen, Melisandre corrected softly. Unwed, unbroken. Stannis folded his arms, cloak billowing. The realm despises dragons. The realm despises hunger and war more, she replied. Give it bread and peace, it will kiss any banner. He watched the black water roil beneath faint starlight. Dragons. If three-scaled demons served him, King's Landing's walls would fall like rotten planks. Yet pride balked at bending knee to Eastern sorcery, and honor scorned alliance with a name his brothers had cursed. But honor could not feed his men, and pride made a poor shield for Shireen's small shoulders. Daos, Stannis murmured at last, ready the fury, we sail before the next moon. The wind carried the taste of storms, yet the decision steadied him. Melisandre's gem glowed brighter, as though flame approved. Thousands of leagues away, beyond the poisoned delta of the Skahazadan, Daenerys Targaryen stood upon the terrace of the Great Pyramid of Meereen. The city sprawled beneath her like a broken mosaic. Night fires guttered in the streets, tiny orange flecks drifting through the dark as the embers of rebellion yet unsmothered. Somewhere below, the sons of the Harpies sharpened bronze blades for throats she swore to protect, and her unsullied marched the patrols until their sandaled feet bled. She pressed slender hands to the warm pink stone, listening to Meereen's heartbeat. Distant drums, a crying babe, the coarse cough of a dying freedman. Ruling tasted like ash lately. She had traded the wide seas for stagnant canals, her dragons for catacombs. Drogon, she thought, tilting her face to the velvet sky. Somewhere aloft, unseen, her wild son hunted beneath the stars. She felt him in her dreams, wing beats like thunder, breath like furnaces stoked. When she woke, her sheets clung damp to skin, and Meereen's walls loomed closer than any dragon's embrace. Soft footsteps approached. Missandei of Nath bowed. Your Grace, his Dazo Lorak waits in the audience hall. He brings a gift of perfumed candles and speaks of marriage again. Daenerys exhaled. Perfumed candles melt and marriages burn. The scribe's brow furrowed. Shall I send him away? Tell him the queen attends to matters of war. Missandei nodded and withdrew. War. Dot. The word drummed through her pulse. Ever since Astapor, war had pursued her like a shadow grown bold in sunlight. Yet she had not crossed the narrow sea, had not set foot upon the land that once sang her ancestors' names. Every step seemed to circle back to the Harpy's talons. A flicker of red caught her eye. Quaithe leaned against a marble column, mask shimmering. The warrior of stone seeks the mother of dragons, the Shadowbinder intoned, voice muffled by a lacquered visor. Beware the sea made of swords. Daenerys tensed. Another riddle. Speak plainly or not at all. Nah. Maizi. Matui. Mayo. You will know him by the shadow of a stag upon fire, Quaithe whispered, and melted into moonlight, as if the night swallowed her whole. Daenerys' spine chilled. A stag upon fire. House Baratheon crowned its noble beast, yet who set stags aflame? Storms churned in her memory. whispers of a foreign god, tales from Jorah once told by campfire. R'hllor, a red priest with ruby eyes. Dragons stirred below, responding to her unease. In the blackened pit, Rhaegal's chains rattled, Viserion hissed in pale fury. Their mother brushed fear aside. Let any stag come, burning or no. She was Targaryen, blood of the dragon, and if her suitor dared cross the seas, he would find more than riddles waiting. The sea of sighs bore the fury eastward beneath a bruised dawn. Sailcloth cracked overhead, salt spray beaded across the deck like cold sweat. Stannis rarely left the quarterdeck. He studied charts until ink blurred, pacing the boards until even the bosun eyed him with concern. Davos kept near, coaxing details of wind and current from old smugglers, while Melisandre prayed long hours by the prow, her red dress streaming behind like a wound unraveling. Nights gathered heavy with omens. Candles trembled though the air was still, and the priestess spoke of dragons glimpsed in sparks. Stannis listened, stone silent, yet each tale carved a niche in his resolve. One evening, as the sky purpled around a slit of orange horizon, Melisandre approached with a blade glowing cherry-hot from brazier coals. She plunged it into seawater. Steam hissed and shapes danced within the vapor. 3 great wings, a crown of antlers, and a sword wreathed by a ring of flame. Lightbringer yearns for sister flame, she murmured, eyes aglow. When dragon fire tempers steel, night shall shatter. Stannis clenched his jaw. Steel bends to no forge but a just cause. Then make cause with her, the priestess urged. 2 flames, 1 purpose. Davos voiced doubts in quiet counsel. You cannot trust Selzward's enslavers Bay, much less dragons, sire. And the girl, her blood is Valyrian, half wild with prophecy. Known to her young. Pauli. Stannis' reply was iron. Prophecy did not seat a boy on my throne, actions will. Yet, in the deepest watches of night, while lanterns swayed and the hull groaned like an old leviathan, he wondered if prophecy might prove a blade as sharp as any in his armory. Sharp enough to carve a path through lions and roses alike. Weeks stretched into moons. Finally, the green arch of the Skahazadon Delta rose on the horizon, its muddy bloom staining the wine-blue expanse. Strange birds circled the masts, shrieking welcomes that sounded more like warnings. The Fury anchored amid a swarm of fishing skiffs and teetering barges, while smaller boats ferried the king's party past colossal harpy statues, whose stone wings overshadowed the river mouth. Meereen loomed beyond, pale ziggurats, winding canals, haze from countless cook fires. On the highest terrace of the Great Pyramid, a banner of black and scarlet flapped, dragon bright against the dawn. Stannis' mouth thinned. Melisandre's lips curved in satisfaction, as though a god's private jest had ripened before their very eyes. Within the council chamber, whose walls echoed with centuries of slave masters' whispers, Daenerys paced before a long table of polished lapis. Grey Worm stood sentinel near the door, his unsullied face as unreadable as the stone itself. Ser Barristan Selmy knelt upon one knee, white cloak sweeping tiled floor. His da hovered nearby with unctuous concern, while Missandei took notes in a low flourish of quill on parchment. The captain claims to serve Stannis Baratheon, Selmy said, rising. He bears raven-sealed letters, signatures, and the weight of earnest purpose, my queen. Daenerys brushed a silver strand from her eyes. Did Robert not usurp my family? Why should I break bread with his brother? Robert is dead, Barristan reminded gently, and by Westerosi law, Stannis is rightful heir. His reputation is stern but not unjust. His douche scoffed. A Westerosi king at our gates, with Celsail speaking of dragons. It smells of conquest. And yet he comes as supplicant, Missandei offered. No fleet behind him save 2 escorts. No armies camped upon the dunes. Grey Worm's gaze flicked toward the queen. The Unsullied can line the ways of wisdom. If he plots treachery, blood will wash his hulls. Daenerys' pulse quickened. A suitor across the sea once promised her a golden crown. Another offered 10,000 Dothraki horses. Both were dust now. Yet this man brought talk of law, of prophecies, and perhaps of fires greater than any smithy. She remembered Quaithy's warning, the stag upon fire. The Red God's servants did not jest lightly. See him, she decided, in the throne room at dusk, and let Drogon circle the pyramid when the bells toll. Kings should know whose skies they trespass. Dusk bled purple across Meereen's skyline. The throne room blazed with braziers and torches, gold and onyx reflecting ripples of flame. Daenerys took her seat upon a chair carved like 2 entwined dragons. Heat shimmered along scaled backs where molten candles pooled. Her silver-white hair coiled down one shoulder in a braid studded with tiny rubies. She wore a gown of dark indigo silk that left her arms bare to the shoulder, the better to reveal scars where dragon claws had once grazed her skin, the marks of motherhood, not wounds of weakness. The great bronze doors groaned open. Stannis Baratheon strode beneath the arch, cloak trailing like storm clouds. Broad of shoulder, face hewn in uncompromising lines, he walked as if the hall itself were some battlefield he meant to conquer. Beside him moved Melisandre, her red silks licking firelight, and Sir Davos, plain in wool and leather, yet bearing himself with quiet dignity. They halted 10 paces from the dais. Stannis bowed, not deep, but measured, enough to satisfy courtesy without forfeiting pride. "Your Grace," he said, voice gravel-tested by salt air, "I am Stannis of House Baratheon, by rights of birth and law King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men." Daenerys inclined her head. "Daenerys of House Targaryen, Queen of Meereen, rightful Queen of the 7 Kingdoms, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons." The titles spilled like molten gold, each a brand of survival stamped upon her heart. She watched his eyes flicker, somewhere between respect and weary impatience. "A troubled realm has no use for 2 rightfuls," he observed. "The throne is one's seat. So is a saddle," she countered softly. "Yet a Khalazar may follow 2 riders if the horses run side by side." Words hung between them like cords pulled taut. Fire cracked in braziers. The priestess's ruby pulsed. "I did not come for riddles," Stannis said. "I came for accord. Westeros rots beneath a headless crown. Joffrey's corpse rotted, Tommen's reign stolen by roses and lions alike. I seek justice. In your soul." "Justice for whom?" Daenerys asked. "For the realm," he said, and his hand clenched on invisible hilt. "And for every child starved by war, every farmer burned by raiders wearing Lannister crimson or Bolton, flayed men. Yours is the blood of Aegon, mine the blood of Storm's End. Alone we might triumph, but together we end the game before winter's jaws close." Daenerys leaned forward. "My dragons will not bend knee, nor will my crown," he replied. "Yet we may forge something stronger than knees and crowns." He paused as if tasting the next words. "A marriage. Fire and steel mingled. Lemdus ya." All's murmurs stilled. Istar choked on his breath. Grey Worm's hand twitched toward spear shaft. Missandei's quill froze mid-curve. Daenerys felt her pulse drum in her throat. Marriage had been leash and key all at once, from Drogo's saddle to Meereen's brusque proposals. But disunion, she pictured red stags rampant beside 3-headed dragons, banners tangled in a tempest. Could 2 storms meet, without drowning the world between? She studied Stannis' face, stubborn, scored by defeat yet unbroken, sunken cheeks, eyes like narrowed ice. No lover's visage, yet there was something fierce in his restraint, iron hammered too long to know it still glowed. He would never flatter, perhaps he would never lie, but he would stand unbowed while the winds howled. "I will consider," she said, voice low, "yet I will know the measure of the man before I bind my fate." "Then test me," he replied, "but know I am forged for purpose, not show." A roar shook the rafters. Drogon, vast shadow against twilight, swept past open windows, wreathed black wings eclipsing the setting sun. The gust of his passage doused half the torches, leaving swimming darkness behind. Stannis' cloak whipped, but the king did not flinch. Only a faint spark lit in his gray eyes, like a soldier glimpsing the blade that might win a war. Melisandre lifted her hands, whispering in Rhoynar, ruby blazing. The green fire of braziers flared scarlet for a heartbeat, then faded. Shadows danced wildly along vaulted walls, as though living. Daenerys rose. "Tomorrow at dawn, atop the pyramid, come unarmed save for truth. We shall speak beneath dragons' wings." "So be it," Stannis said. He bowed once more, then turned on heel, cloak swirling. Davos offered a thin smile to Missandei, respectful before following. Melisandre lingered breath, ruby throbbing, eyes upon Daenerys as though seeing something beyond flesh. Then she glided after her king. The doors closed. Heat, silence, the hush of torches regaining courage. Daenerys exhaled slowly. "Your Grace," Barristan said at her shoulder. "He is a hard man. But so was your ancestor who forged the seven into one. Alliances like swords require tempering." Lys Tenji. Daenerys touched the scar on her arm where Drogon's talon had once grazed. "A sword quenched too quickly shatters," she murmured. Outside, Drogon roared again, a sound vast as the gulf between east and west. Yet, within its thunder, she heard possibility, like flint striking steel. Night deepened, hot and thick as poured pitch. In a small garden courtyard high within the pyramid's folds, Stannis stood alone before a shallow pool lit by floating candles. Perfumed lilies drifted, their white petals half submerged. He had refused soft beds and scented baths, but Davos insisted he rest. Rest, however, avoided him as deftly as victory had lately. Melisandre appeared by the archway, the lantern in her grasp, turning her eyes molten. "She is fire made flesh," the priestess said. "Do you feel the heat?" "I feel humidity," Stannis grunted. She smiled. "Tomorrow, ask for her hand. When she offers you dragonfire, offer her the realm. 2 flames shall forge Lightbringer anew." He gazed at the flickering pool. Candles bobbed like tiny ships adrift upon blackwater memories. "And if she refuses, then we shape another path. But the lords will seldom err twice." Stannis' reflection loomed upon the dark surface. Gaunt cheeks, stubborn chin, eyes ringed with sleepless iron. He looked nothing like a suitor, yet kings seldom courted as bards did. A realm was bright enough, but perhaps flame demanded more. He looked skyward, seeing nothing but sliver of moon and the brief silhouette of something winged gliding across it. A shiver traced his spine, half apprehension, half grim anticipation. Tomorrow. Dawn blossomed gold against Marine's broken skyline. Pale shafts cut through lingering nightshade, limning every brick and cobble with tentative hope. On the lofty terrace, where harpies once spread wings of oppression, Daenerys awaited, clad in simple riding leathers of darkest red, hair loose save for 3 slim braids clasped behind her neck. Beside her perched Drogon, enormous weight cracking ancient tiles, ebony wings folded but restless. his nostrils ribboned steam into chill morning. Stannis approached along the windswept walkway, Davos a step behind. He had donned breastplate, chased with a fiery heart and stag at center, though no sword hung at his hip. Melisandre remained below. The king's demand for truth meant none would speak, save those with stakes upon the board. They halted an arm's length away. Sea wind tangled with dragon scent, smoke, char, wild things. Stannis' eyes reflected the beast's furnace glow. "Truth, your grace," Daenerys said, voice carrying over wind and the distant clatter of awakening city. "Why seek you me?" "Because justice is a wheel," he answered. "Broken, it spins ruin. Alone, I have not the spokes to mend it. You have dragons, I have lawful claim. Fire and steel, entwined, might remake the wheel entire." "Come." She stroked Drogon's neck. Scales rasped under her palm like armored leather. "And what of my own claim? My father sat that throne before yours usurped it. He burned men alive," Stannis said bluntly, "and your brother would have done worse. I do not seek to restore ashes. I seek to save the living." Daenerys met his gaze. "And if our purposes clash, then let purpose temper itself upon adversity, as blade on stone," he said. "I will not kneel, yet I will stand beside." Silence stretched. Wind coiled around them, lifting dark hair and darker cloaks. Drogon sniffed at the newcomer. A gout of black smoke drifted near Stannis' boots, but the king did not retreat. "I am not a broodmare for alliances," Daenerys said. "Marriage is no token I will trade for convenience." Stannis' face did not soften. "Nor am I a bauble hung upon your titles. This would be no convenience. It would be a covenant." "And if I choose otherwise?" she asked. "Choose, but choose swiftly." He looked out over the waking city. "Winter marches. I have seen tracks of snow upon Blackwater Bay, though it is but autumn. A greater darkness stirs beyond your harpy's walls, beyond my brother's shadow. Dragons may warm the world, but a lone hearth is small comfort against a storm without end." Dany. Toda soon. Daenerys felt something stir. Fear or resolve she could not yet name. Visions of white wastes haunted her after restless nights. Tales Barristan told of horrors beyond the wall, dead men walking. Could those be prophecy's pulse? Could this stern stag be another piece upon the board of destiny? Drogon's yellow eye fixed upon Stannis like molten coin. Heat radiated off scaled flanks. Stannis endured, sweat beading upon his brow yet refusing to blot. At length Daenerys sighed. 5 days, she said. "In 5 days I will answer. Until then, dine at my table, walk my streets, see what queenhood has wrought here. If I am to bind fate, I will do so with open eyes." Stannis dipped his head. 5 days, then. He turned, cloak snapping, and strode away. Davos lingered long enough to offer the queen a nod, both courteous and curious, then followed. Daenerys watched them descend into the pyramid's shadow. 5 days. What could be decided in so brief a span? Yet life measured destiny not in comfort of years, but in the strike of moments. If this was such a moment, she would meet it unshaken. She gazed eastward, toward suns she had never touched, and westward, toward a throne forged in the furnace of her bloodline. When pulls of birth and duty twisted in her chest, beneath her hand, Drogon rumbled. The next days unfolded like parchments unfurled across sun-bleached mosaic floor. Stannis toured Meraine's fighting pits, now silent, sand caked with weeds where blood had once soaked. He inspected granaries, finding them half empty though harvest lay months away. He walked the alleys where freedmen huddled, suspicious, half-starved, praying to gods old and new and strange. Davos spoke to grain merchants, gauging coin flows, and whispered allegiances, while Melisandre haunted temple steps, ruby aflame beneath foreign idols. At night they dined with the queen beneath hanging lanterns, discussing law, lineage, strategy, diet. Daenerys listened as Davos recounted Stannis' siege of Storm's End, how he fed his garrison on rats and boot leather, yet never surrendered. She tasted the salt of that stubbornness, wondered if such resolve might anchor her own drifting hope. Stannis, in turn, listened as Daenerys spoke of unsullied discipline, of chains broken and masters flung from Harpy towers. He marked the names of her enemies: the Harpy, Yunkai lords, Volantine traders who sent secret gold to arm rebellion. He considered how those foes might serve his ends, or threaten them. On the third day, a Sons of the Harpy cell struck a patrol near the eastern market, killing 6 freedmen and an apprentice unsullied. Stannis rode with Grey Worm to the scene. He studied the bodies, eyes like wetted slate, then called for torches though daylight remained. Flames roared over slit-throated corpses, and upon their ashes he vowed to scour treachery from stone. Some freedmen knelt, weeping, praising the foreign king who would burn their tormentors. Others whispered of foreign fires consuming all. That night, Daenerys confronted him in her solar. "You burned the dead without my leave." "I gave them justice," Stannis replied. "Mercy is a poor salve for poisoned wounds." "They were my people," she said, anger bright. "Meereen burns too easily," he answered. "Fire, once loosed, merely reveals what rot hides beneath." They traded words like swords at practice, edge meeting edge, sparks flying. Yet neither yielded ground, and something fierce and reluctant kindled within them both. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. On the 4th night, as torches guttered low, they found themselves upon the terrace once more, city lights dwindling like embers below. Moonlight silvered Stannis' plain features, softened hard angles. Daenerys, barefoot upon cooling stone, spoke of visories, and of the day her brother perished beneath molten gold. Stannis told her of Renly, how shadow had stolen him, how grief was a cloak sodden with ice. They shared silences, heavy as history, broken only by distant cries of night birds and the steady crash of waves beyond river mouth. When dawn's first blush touched pyramid stone, they parted without touch, but the space between them seemed less vast. The morning of the 5th day dawned clear, the sky a swath of glass stretching over Meereen's scabbed rooftops. A hush swept the city, as if every man, woman, and child sensed balance resting upon blade point. Bells tolled from temple spires, mournful and expectant. In the throne room where Shadow had once cowered, Daenerys awaited. Her dress this day was simple, white linen belted with braided leather, the color of new beginnings or burial shroud. Drogon was absent by her command. His presence might tip scales she could not yet weigh. Instead, unsullied lined the walls, spears upright. Stannis entered alone. His doublet bore no sigil this day, no fiery heart or crowned stag, only plain black, though the auric gleam of kingly purpose clung still about his shoulders. Daenerys rose. "Have you found your answer, King Stannis?" "I have," he said, and his eyes were steady as winter seas. "I would join fire to steel. I would marry you, Daenerys of House Targaryen, and together carve peace from chaos. Not for glory, glory fades. Nor for love, love is a luxury kings seldom afford. For duty, for the realm." Silence swelled, a living thing, breath caught in every throat. Even the torches leaned closer, flames yearning. Daenerys stepped down from the dais, each footfall echoing. She halted before him, close enough to feel the residual warmth of sun upon his cloak. "Long have I dreamed of reclaiming what was stolen," she said. Yet as I crossed deserts and seas, I learned thrones are cold, unless hearts kindle them. She drew a breath. Your heart burns with iron resolve, but iron may temper flame as much as be tempered by it. Yes, he said simply. Her violet eyes searched weathered face, seeking fractures, found only austere strength. She remembered knights who smiled sweet promises, Khalasars who worshipped her as bride of the world, sellswords who pledged coin-fin loyalty. None had looked upon her with such plain, unvarnished purpose. She placed her hand upon his. Rough calluses met dragon-scarred skin. Then let duty guide us both, she whispered. The throne room exhaled as though released from centuries of withheld breath. Sound returned, the crackle of torches, distant cry of gulls, the soft rustle of unsullied spears shifting. Stannis bowed his head. We shall summon maesters for bans, priests for blessings. In Moraine, she said, oaths are sworn before gods and men, but chains are broken by deed. Prove to me in flame and steel alike. His grip tightened. Name your trial. Restore this city's peace, she said. Break the Harpies back, together. Her gaze hardened. Then we sail west, dragons and fleet united. Stannis inclined his head. Done. But Daenerys released his hand. Tonight we host council, unsullied. Stormlanders, freedmen, smuggler, priestess. We will speak of war upon the Harpy. She smiled, small and knowing. After peace, marriage. Stannis' lips twitched, a gesture so rare it startled even him. After peace, he agreed. They parted, yet something unseen tethered them, taut but unbreakable. A new forging, fire meeting steel. As evening settled upon pyramid and plaza, torches kindled anew, casting twin shadows upon the walls. One like a dragon coiled, wings half unfurled. The other a stag rampant, antlers aflame. Above, the stars began to prick holes in the velvet sky, as though the gods themselves leaned closer, curious to witness what manner of dawn such alliance might birth. The wheel of destiny creaked, ever so slightly, and turned. Well, yeah. The bronze gong that summoned council boomed through the great pyramid like a challenge hurled across seas and centuries. In a torch-lit chamber high above the sleeping courtyards, Daenerys stood at the head of a crescent-shaped table, inlaid with whorls of lapis and jade. Behind her, a narrow balcony opened onto black sky. Warm night wind teased the flame of every torch and carried far-off street sounds, vendors hawking flatbread, dogs barking at stray goats, the distant hammer of a smith who could not sleep. Yet within these walls the air felt tight, choked with unshed words, each participant clutching their silence like a drawn knife. Stannis Baratheon claimed a seat to her right. He wore the same austere doublet he had chosen that morning, the fabric still smelling faintly of pitch and salt. His hands rested upon the polished wood as though it were a battlement, fingers splayed, nails cropped soldier short. Opposite him sat Grey Worm, his spear propped against the table's inner rim. The unsullied commander's expression remained impenetrable marble. Between them, Zerberistan Selmai, a bridge of old valor, kept one gauntleted hand curled around the pommel of his sword, white cloak draped immaculate along the floor. Farther down the arc, Melisandre lounged with eyes half-lidded, the ruby at her throat pulsing in time with her heartbeat. The priestess's red silk flowed over chair arms and pooled at her feet like living fire, each slight movement catching torchlight in crimson ripples. Davos Seaworth sat 2 seats away from her, shoulders hunched, thumb stroking the stump where 4 fingers should have been. On the opposite end, his Darzo Lorak claimed a place out of courtesy, though his presence had been contested. He consoled himself by smoothing the sleeves of a pearl-colored robe and adjusting gilded cuffs whenever silence thickened. Missandei of Neath hovered behind Daenerys' shoulder with quill poised, parchment ready to drink every word spilled. No scribes of Storm's End or Moraine's ancient scribblers were permitted tonight. Only the Queen's own listener, who recorded in Valyrian shorthand so brief and elegant that even the most cunning master would struggle to decipher it. An empty chair waited for Dario Naharis, but the Sellsword captain had vanished into Moraine's alleys at sunset, claiming he would gather ears to the ground. Whether those ears would still be attached to heads come dawn remained uncertain. Daenerys pressed both palms to the table's cool surface and surveyed the circle. When she spoke, her voice filled the space effortlessly, clear as a bell's strike on glass. "Moraine bleeds," she began. "Sons of the Harpy haunt the night, cutting throats in alleys I promised would stay free. Every corpse they leave mocks the chains I broke. My enemies beyond these walls grow bold on the rumors of chaos within. We have stood at an impasse because I have refused to rule through terror. But peace purchased in blood may yet save a city's soul if the blade falls only upon the guilty." Nanun Bilizim. She turned towards Stannis. "You vowed justice. Show me now how you would administer it." The king inclined his head, a gesture not of deference but of acceptance that the burden had passed to him. His voice answered like iron on ice. "A city is a fortress turned inward. Its walls protect or imprison according to the loyalties of those who hold the gates. Your Harpy hides behind masks because he still commands hidden keepers of those gates. Scribes, coin counters, dockmasters, grain factors, scribes, priests of the graces. Sever every covert purse string, expose every secret ledger, hang every bribe taker in the public square, and masks will crumble under their own weight." "Munsh, Dany." Isdar half rose from his chair. "These are venerable houses. Cut too deeply, and the city may starve when trade routes close and orchards refuse to tithe. Even freedmen labor under the old master's storehouses. Nana, what him?" Stannis' gaze cut like a whetstone. "Rotten granaries deserve fire. Better build new storehouses than barter lives for false peace." Grey Worm spoke with measured cadence. "Unsullied patrol the alleys nightly, yet killers strike where patrols dare not linger long. Maze roads, Honeycomb Quarter, the sewers. They bribe city watch meant to replace slave catchers. Toothless men cannot bite." Davos cleared his throat. "Aye, your watch is thin. When I walked those alleys this day, I counted 5 bravos swaggering in Lorac colors for every unsullied with cracked sandals. This is not Storm's End. They whisper before they shout. Free folk join the Harpy because the Harpy pays in coin, in fear, in promises of old order restored. Barristan's blue eyes swept the chamber. There are pockets of loyalty yet among the old houses. Some masters truly grieve for lost sons and wish peace. Harden them too harshly, and they, too, will flee to Yonkai's arms. Melisandre's soft laugh sliced the tension. Mercy for traitors lights no path. There is cleansing fire in true devotion. The Harpy's heart beats in secret catacombs. Seek it out, burn it, and the serpent dies. No, Daenerys raised a hand. The chamber stilled. Tonight, we speak of a plan, not of philosophies. Ser Barristan composed the City Watch rosters, names, posts, points of failure. Grey Worm. Detail every alley where unsullied feet cannot pass two abreast. Every sewer grate wide enough for 10 men crouched. Davos. Procure lists of warehouses rumored to house weapons or grain hoarded by masters. Isdar. Secure the Graces to deliver proclamations, promising pardon for any citizen who denounces a sun cell before the new moon. And you, she turned to Melisandre, ignite no fires without my leave. The priestess bowed her head, ruby glowing. As you command, your radiance. Stannis' lips twitched, whether from approval or amusement Daenerys could not tell. She felt the gaze of every man and woman settle upon her like a mantle newly sewn. stitched with threads of divergent loyalties. She stood straighter beneath its weight. Tomorrow at first light we reconvene. Each will bring their findings. The sons of the Harpy have until dusk tomorrow to surrender their blades. After that, we hunt. She looked to Stannis. Side by side, he met her eyes. Until the work is done. Buzzing twilight swelled outside as council dispersed. Torchlight spilled across Spiral Stair as Daenerys descended with Missandei at her flank. Guards trailing silent until the corridors breathed emptier and the hush of late hour cloaked them. Yet halfway down the third staircase, Stannis' voice called her name, not shouted but spoken with command enough to still her feet. She turned back. He strode down 2 steps, the torch behind him carving hollows beneath his cheekbones. I would walk the alleys, he said. Tonight. She frowned. The suns strike at night, and I would know the beast in its den. His gaze held steady. If the queen walks, the Harpy will smell new wind. If the stag walks, they'll mistake me for old blood return. You'll be killed. She studied his face. Not desperation. Determination. He had marched to the Blackwater's wildfire with the same expression. You do not know these streets. I've patrolled worse. He raised 2 fingers. Take 2 unsullied for escort. Enough to deter cutpurses, not enough to alarm spies. Let them see me. Let them whisper. Tomorrow's noose will tighten fast. Every sense in her rebelled, but the flame of his resolve mirrored something within her that refused to rule from cushions. She nodded once. Grey Worm chooses your escort. If they return without you, Drogon will scour the night. A shadow of a smile touched his lips. Surprising, fleeting. Then I shall give them reason to guide me safely home. The alleys east of the Poison Market writhed like guts torn from a giant, twisting, nodding back upon themselves. Brick walls leaned inward overhead. Rope-strung lanterns shed flickering pools across cobbles, slick with spilled wine and piss. Dogs scrabbled through refuse. The scent of fry oil mingled with incense, thick enough to clog the throat. Stannis walked at measured pace. 2 unsullied in plain linen followed 10 paces behind. Spears slung in casual rest. He had traded doublet for boiled leather brigandine. No sigil on chest. Cloak pinned but not trailing. A dagger hid beneath belt, but his right hand stayed clear. Davos kept stride at his side, hood drawn low. More than once the smuggler murmured a warning, and guided the king around a suspicious group of youths loitering near shuttered shop. They passed a shuttered tavern where once slave masters gambled on pit fights. Red paint across the door spelled words in Kiskari that none bothered now to scrub away, bend or bleed. Chill flitted beneath Stannis' ribs. He thought of Renly's bright camps, of banners flapping colors and songs carrying across warm nights. These alleys offered no color but rust, no songs but threats. A figure in harlequin silk lounged at a corner, juggling 5 brass coins that glinted under lantern light. As Stannis and Davos drew near, the juggler's eyes narrowed. Fingers stilled, coins vanished into sleep. Lost foreigners, the youth asked in high Valyrian, edged with slum patter. The docks are west. We seek a certain bird, Davos replied, calm. Golden mask, claws dipped in innocent blood. The juggler's smile thinned. Bird? Here there are only rats. 1 coin reappeared, rolled across knuckles. The youth flicked it toward Davos, a glimmer spinning through dank air. Davos caught it, bloodstain darkened half its surface. By the time he looked up, the juggler had melted away, swallowed by shadows manyfold. Stannis studied the coin under lantern light. On its face, a harpy spread wings. On the obverse, a rough stag had been scratched through deeply, gouged by blade tip until only half remained. He closed fist around it. They know. Davos tucked the coin into pouch. A warning or invitation? Both. Stannis scanned rooftops. Tell the Unsullied to mark that juggler. Might lead to a nest. They pressed on, past shuttered brothels where freed women huddled beside braziers, cooking porridge for babes whose fathers were anonymous or dead, past a public well guarded by two gray-cloaked freedmen, wielding cudgels, eyes darting for harpy masks. The night thickened. Unswept dust rose to haze each lantern. Echoes drifted of laughter too brittle to be drunken, of a woman keening for a missing son. At a narrow passage, a low whistle cut the gloom. Two shapes melted from alcoves, bronze blades catching lamplight, masks of beaten gold-covered faces, harpy visages sneering. The taller lunged for Davos, the other slashed towards Stannis with practiced brutality. The king sidestepped, arms snapping up to catch the attacker's wrist. He twisted, bones popped, the blade clattered. With his free hand, he slammed the harpy's masked face against brick, once, twice, until the gold dented inward. The Unsullied thundered forward, spears leveled, but Stannis already had the man crumpled at his boots. Davos blocked his assailant's slash with leather-braced forearm, dagger flicking to hamstring. The harpy hissed, stumbled. Davos slammed pommel to temple. Mask split. The man folded. The alleys fell quiet, save for ragged breathing. Stannis crouched to wrench the mask free. Beneath, a boy of perhaps 18 stared up in shock, cheek split, an eye swelling shut. Blood spattered his chin where golden edges cut. Why the mask? Stannis growled. The boy spat. To honor the harpy, mother of Meereen. You foreigners. His words choked off as Stannis pressed dagger point against throat. I am no foreigner to justice. Stannis' voice chilled like northern wind. Speak and live. Boots clattered at mouth of alley. 3 more harpies materialized, but the Unsullied barred passage with crossed spears. One hissed a command, blades lifted. Tension throbbed like a plucked harp string. Davos' voice sliced through. Look close, lads. The man you face is Stannis Baratheon, would be king across the sea. He sacked Dragonstone's bastion with 13 ships, and broke a pirate fleet twice his number. How many of you fancy your chances? A flicker of doubt crossed the harpy's eyes. Stannis saw it, pressed vantage. You fight for ghosts. The masters you avenge bartered your sisters for coin. Fed your fathers to dogs. Lower blades, kneel. I will spare you. Words, foreigner. Their leader snarled behind mask. Yet hesitation lingered. The Unsullied spearheads glinted a hair's breadth from ribs. A rustle overhead, stones rattled. Stannis glanced up to see a figure perched upon roof edge, crossbow train. Torchlight glimmered on bolt tip. He had no shield. The Unsullied spears were wrong-angled. Instinct coiled. Davos lunged, shoving Stannis behind him, but the bolt had already flown. It whistled between them, cut empty air, and struck brick with a sparking thunk. Too high. A warning shot. The rooftop figure shouted something in Giscari, curse or signal, then vanished across tiles. The alley harpies melted with him, sprinting past spears before Unsullied could react. Stannis exhaled. His captive remained kneeling, dagger still at throat, too stunned to flee. The king hauled him upright. Your name? Rogoro, the youth whispered, trembling. Where is their den? I don't know. They move. Dusk, one place, dawn another. Nesiden, no east. Stannis' jaw flexed. Who commands tonight? Rogoro, bit torn lip. A woman, pale hair. They call her the Weeping Dove. Davos frowned. Know her, your grace? Shook head. No. He sheathed dagger, shoved the youth toward Unsullied. Bind him, bring to Barristan. Then, voice lowered, tell Salme. Assemble Stormlanders you can trust. We raid at first torch tomorrow. Davos nodded grimly. Stannis looked skyward again, seeking the roof sentinel. Only patchwork moon flickered through clouds. The harpy counts tonight. Dany go to Westun. That guide. Tomorrow we answer. Nan, your misadun, she. Dawn over Marine, bled rose and copper, sky streaked like a flayed hide. In the pyramid's war gallery, maps of city districts lay unrolled across table stands, inked fresh by Missandei and two of Selmy's scribes through the long hours before sunrise. Each parchment bristled with colored pegs, blue for unsullied patrols, green for watch posts, black for suspected harpy nests, red for confirmed killings. Overnight reports had turned half the city into a pincushion. Daenerys paced barefoot upon mosaic floor, silver-white braid swinging between shoulder blades. She had not slept. Circles darkened her eyes, yet they burned with purpose. Grey Worm, Selmy, Davos, and Stannis ringed the largest map. Isdar lingered near doorframe, affecting calm but twitching each time a peg was thrust into parchment. Stannis briefly recounted alley ambush, producing the damaged mask upon which impressions of brick still dented. He described crossbow sentinel, the youth, now in prison. Barristan listened, lips pressed tight. When Stannis finished, Selmy stabbed a red peg into eastern slums. Too close to the Wells district, he muttered. They float through these lanes like eels. Daenerys halted. Then we drain the canal. All at once, Davos asked. Cut water supply will have riot come midday. Not water, she said. We drain hiding places. Barristan, how many City Watch shift masters answered my call to muster at sunbreak? 4 of 9, he said grimly. The others sent sickness as excuse. Sickness of loyalty, Stannis growled. Daenerys touched the map where 5 black pegs clustered. Those absent shift masters oversee these quarters, likely dens. Grey Worm nodded. Unsullied strike from 3 directions. Block sewers, drive them upward. Monsieur. Stannis pointed to a narrow street connecting 2 pegs. We funnel escapees here. Another tap at map's edge. Davos and I hold choke point, Stormlanders hidden on terraces. His eyes met Daenerys. You bring dragons overhead, a show of force. She considered. Drogon circles high. Rhaegal and Viserion stay chained until we confirm no freedmen are in path. Fire only on my signal. Melisandre's whisper drifted from entrance. No one had heard her arrive. Signal of flame. Ruby pulsed with every syllable. The Lord's favor will guide righteous fire. Stannis spared her half glance. No chance fire leaps slate roofs. The god has precision, she purred. Davos snorted softly. Let's trust in buckets as well as blessings. Daenerys traced finger along channel marking old aqueduct. We station water brigades here. Any blaze is quenched before wind carries it. She looked to Selmy. Your watch loyalists quell civilian panic. Istar cleared throat. And what of trade? Dusk ships queue at wharves. Disturb this quarter and grain levies from Lazar may refuse docking. Stannis' expression cut him short. Grain of traitors sours the belly. Daenerys raised palm. First end blades drawn against innocents. Trade can mend when streets run safe. Plans crystallized. Pegs shifted until paths resembled a net closing round a serpent. When final routes were agreed, Grey Worm rolled maps with crisp efficiency. Unsullied messengers sprinted down corridors to rouse patrols. A hush of anticipation settled. Daenerys lingered as others filed out. Stannis paused at threshold. She spoke quietly. You risked your life last night. He shrugged. A king without courage is a crown without jewels. Courage alone cannot hold a city. No. His glance took in maps now bare of pins, but it earns men who will. She watched him go, senses humming in his wake. Sun climbed, heat-soaked stone. The sons of the Harpies slept through late morning after nightlife of knives. Unaware city's heartbeat quickened in conspiratorial rhythm. In Honeycomb Quarter, brick facades concealed secret doors that opened onto twisting corridors. There the weeping dove knelt beside a brazier, scraping lines of chalk across floor. Pale hair bound beneath linen, she hummed childhood lullaby of old kiss as maskless acolytes sharpened daggers. She did not wear a mask herself. Her tears sufficed, patterns tattooed from temples to jaw, each droplet indigo blue. They marked her as survivor of Yunkai brothel fires, trauma that had burnt away mercy. Now she guided harpies with fervor, preaching that dragons and whores must both be culled to reclaim Marian's soul. A courier slipped inside, breathless. Foreign king walks our streets. Stormlander sellswords mass on merchant roofs. Murderant. The dove rose. Then we strike at midday bench crowds, spill blood beneath bright sun. Dragons cannot spit flame without torching their queen's freedmen. But as she barked orders, heavy thumps reverberated down corridor, battering rams against concealed door. Stone dust fell. A hidden latch snapped. Unsullied poured through, shields locked, spears stabbing in perfect phalanx. Screams crescendoed. The dove hissed, retreating down second tunnel, only to find exit choked by ranks of Stormlanders dragging reinforced mantlets. Heavy crossbows leveled, quarrels twanged, felling masked disciples. Davos advanced beneath buckler, barking commands. Behind him, ragged Cellsail recruits forced captured harpies to the ground. Stannis stepped through shattered doorway. Smoke of braziers licked his armor, cast infernal gleam. The dove's eyes widened at sight of Stagheart emblem. She flung a dagger, fast, deadly true. His left gauntlet snapped upward, blade ringing off steel. He drove forward, forehead smashing against her nose. She reeled, blood spraying. Unsullied shackled her wrists with iron loops. Through corridors, clashes erupted, steel striking bronze, muffled curses, boots pounding. But Unsullied discipline and Stormlander ferocity pressed inexorable advance. One by one, Harpy cells collapsed, cut off from escape routes blocked by Grey Worm's units. Sewers flooded when city engineers, bribed by Davos, diverted canal water, driving fugitives into open. Above rooftop lines, Drogon's ebony silhouette wheeled, casting sliding shadow. His roar petrified archers mid-draw. Many flung bows aside and prostrated themselves. Rhaegal and Viserion, still chained, bellowed from pits, an echoing thunder that rippled across brick. By mid-afternoon, columns of prisoners were marched beneath sun into the Plaza of Punishment, where master statues once watched slaves flogged. Now those statues lay toppled. Freedmen lined parapets, shouting curses as gold masks were ripped away, revealing neighbors, cousins, scribes once thought innocuous. Daenerys, mounted upon a sleek silver mare, rode along rows, flanked by Unsullied. The heat shimmered, dust clung to her cheeks. She halted before a heap of confiscated masks piled high like macabre fruit. Beside her, Stannis dismounted, armor streaked with soot and blood. He tossed a final mask onto mount. "Justice," he declared. Freedmen chorused, "Misa." The cry rolled like thunder, drowning any dissent. Tore open throats, raw with relief and rage in equal measure. Daenerys raised both hands. These men betrayed the city. They conspired to murder freedmen, to strangle hope. Their trials will be swift and public. Let every child know the price of treachery. Mid roars of approval, Stannis' gaze slipped sideways. The weeping dove knelt in irons, at foot of dais. She spat blood at his boots, whispering curses. He regarded her a moment, then turned to Daenerys. "Some serpents weave nests of words better than blades. She will speak names if pressed." Melisandre approached, red silk whispering. Fire loosens tongues. Daenerys' eyes flashed. no burning. Stannis held the gaze of the priestess. Light, not fire. The cellars beneath the pyramid hold chains enough. We need truth, not ash. Melisandre inclined head, perhaps pleased at compromise. Her ruby throbbed, reflecting midday glare. The queen dismounted. She strode to the dove. Who funds you? A ragged laugh. All Meereen funds me. Every freedman fearing hunger. Every child missing a slave father's wage. Your dragons may scorch flesh, but cannot eat debt. Daenerys' voice chilled. Debts shall be paid in coin or service. No chains. She motioned guards. Take her away. Crowd parted. Murmurs rose. Some supportive. Some uneasy at clemency. Dust swirled as unsullied escort dragged Harpy leader toward pyramid steps. Davos approached with ledger retrieved from hideout. Names, your grace, he said, passing scroll to Stannis. 34 dock agents, 5 coin houses, 2 factor princes in Volantis. Stannis' brows knit. A network. Cutting one head off a hydra, Davos said. Then we burn root and branch. Stannis turned toward Daenerys. Time to pull rot into daylight. A proclamation signed by both our seals. Seizure of assets, purge of port authority. Volunteers to replace watch captains from Freedmen Guard. She nodded. Draft it. I will affix the dragon. The evening council reconvened amid subdued triumph. Sweat-streaked faces leaned over fresh maps, now bleeding fewer red pegs. Prisoners, nearly 200. Crowded holding cells under Stormlander guard. The Weeping Dove, under questioning by Barristan and Grey Worm, revealed caches of mask and blade across River Quarter. Raids planned for dawn promised to sever final tendrils, but victory carried bruises. 31 unsullied fallen, 26 freedmen, 12 Stormlanders. Davos spoke of supply lines stretched. Grain stores discovered in master vaults would feed city only a fortnight. Hizdahr urged reopening Yunkai trade lanes. Stannis scowled. Melisandre remained silent, eyes distant, as if reading flames unseen. In the lull between reports, Daenerys retired to terrace. Night breeze cooled sweat. Below, city lights twinkled less like embers of rebellion, more like lanterns awaiting new dawn. Footsteps behind Stannis. She did not turn yet, sensed him stand beside. For a while they watched darkness move. You fight as though born to these streets, she said at length. Every street shares same laws, he replied. Courage bends them, or cowardice breaks them. He rolled shoulders. Fatigue lined his face, but eyes burned hot. Courage is not enough. Grain is thin. Yunkai still marches. We sail west soon, he reminded, but not leave this place a corpse. Peace costs coin as much as lives. She sighed. I freed slaves, but chains of hunger tighten. If Yunkai cuts trade, I may need to bargain. Stannis shook head. Bargain with slavers and you trade souls. There is another way. She turned, curious. Tell me. New ships. Stormlanders build quick. Your dragons guard convoys. Sail to Lazar. Carry grain back. Offer fair coin. Freedmen labor as paid stevedores. The city feeds itself. Trade thrives without slaver gold. Meh, Gazi. She considered. Time is thin. My fleet is smaller than your need. Then, combine. He met her eyes. My carpenters, your timber. Your dragons, my sailors. Fire and steel. In his words, she heard echo of pledge, unspoken. Alliance broadening beyond throne's claim. Into practical sinew. A partnership. She faced the dark horizon, where stars blurred at river mouth. You speak of forging city, as we would realm. A realm begins with one street. He folded arms. But soon we must leave. Winter does not wait. We cannot linger to mend every roof. No. she whispered. Yet I owe these people a future. That future sails with you, he said. A queen returned to Westeros, dragons overhead, promises kept, they will remember. She closed eyes, inhaled salt-tinged wind. Memories of Astapor's cheers, Yonkai's roaring crowds, Meereen's first cry of Missa. They had warmed her bones, yet so had disappointment when chains reforged themselves in her wake. Could she abandon them again? Stannis' voice softened, rare. A ruler may plant seeds whose fruit she'll never taste. Duty means trusting others to harvest. He looked out, as though seeing his own storms end keep, walls buried in snowdrifts yet to fall. Our marriage will bind stormlands, crownlands, dragons, R'hllor's favor. Let the freedmen govern with counsel we craft. Stay, and you risk drowning in their quarrels. Go, and you bring the fire that will consume Lannister light. She opened eyes, and if I falter, I will not. His certainty struck like a hammer. Together we temper weakness. Moonlight silvered his gaunt visage. She studied lines scored by years of siege, each a testament to endurance. Within them she glimpsed strength that might hold her when grief's tides rose. Yet marriage still loomed as chain, familiar dread coiled. She voiced it. Lo, every marriage I have known was forged in barter. A horse, a jewel, a peace, a cord. I do not wish to be purchased again. You are not horse nor jewel, he said. You are forge itself. I bargain for the heat to shape a sword that can cut night. You bargain for steel to grant flame its purpose. Equal exchange. His blunt candor disarmed more than flattery ever could. She smiled, small and tired. You speak as though hearts were smithies. Mine is iron, yours, I suspect, is fire. He looked into her eyes, unflinching. In that unadorned gaze, she felt neither desire nor resentment, only absolute intent. It unnerved her, and yet... Footsteps approached. Missandei, breath quick. Your Grace, the weeping dove speaks again. She names a high priest of the Graces as conspirator. He admires you publicly, funds daggers privately. Stannis' lips compressed, wrought under robes. Daenerys straightened. We act quickly, but no mass arrests. Faith must not become foe. Bring this priest quietly to Pyramid. I will look into his eyes and know. Missandei bowed, withdrew. Daenerys exhaled. The city tests us still. Stannis rested hand on balcony rail. Let it test. Steel is proven under blows. Night deepened. In lower halls, Melisandre knelt before brazier, feeding cedar chips soaked in scented oil. Flames danced, colorless at first, then green, then deepest ruby. Shadows writhed like serpents across walls. She whispered old-tongue hymns. Within coves, she sought visions. At first, harpies wailing in chains. A stag and dragon entwined, forging a flaming sword, whose blade blazed white, not red. Then darkness pouring from far north horizons. Icy wind, stirring dead leaves into patterns that looked like sigils of forgotten houses. Amid frost, eyes of blue glass stared, unblinking. Cracks startled her. Flames split, spitting sparks. She felt presence, looked up. Davos stood at archway, unease edged deep. You search for comfort in fire, he said. I search for truth. She turned back to flames. Truth cares not for comfort. He stepped inside, arms crossed. Tell me truth, does your God bless this marriage? R'hllor shapes paths we tread. I see pillars of flame, one green, one gold. Joined, they coil skyward into sword of dawn fire. That fire may save world. Or burn it. Davos' voice roughened. You would sacrifice cities to forge your dawn. She smiled like a blade unsheathed. Sacrifice makes iron steel. Davos shook head. I've seen enough fire to know it hides as much as it reveals. Guard your visions, lest they lead my king to doom. Nundiun, Anobi, Nanshe. He turned, cloak swirling, leaving embers spitting behind. Melisandre watched his retreat. Doom or deliverance, she murmured. The coin is yet in air. Morning broke, clear and merciless. Unsullied raid swept through final nests as sun-tipped pyramid. Freedmen guards replaced absent shift masters. Barina of the Canal District, a freedwoman turned scribe, took oath as new captain under Barristan's tutelage. Grain warehouses seized under joint seal, revealed stores quadruple official ledgers. Public markets reopened, bread ration lines shortened. Though Yunkai's envoys raged at closed gates, Lazar caravans arrived, lured by promise of fair pay. In Plaza, newly christened Square of Liberation, Daenerys held court. Chains melted into nails for ships. Children hammered them under carpenters' guidance, singing songs, mixing Dothraki chants with Kisgari lullabies. Stormlander tents dotted docks, where shipwrights taught Merini's hullsmiths to frame keels for swift cogs. Yet, rumblings grew. The Green Grace visited knights to warn of temple unrest. Some freedmen resented Stormlander's presence. Stormlander captains grew restless at heat and flies. Dragons snapped at chains. Even as order returned, tension simmered like stew, left too long. 7 days after raids, Stannis approached Queen with parchment rolled crisp. A charter for Provisional Council of Freedmen and Reborn Houses, 10 seats each, under joint oversight of her Seneschal Missandei and his hand Davos. Election by lot, each moon. Law court supervised by Selmy. Port duties split to fund docks and grain subsidies. It was pragmatic, but ambitious. Daenerys unrolled scroll beneath torchlight, scanning clauses. At final line, space left blank for signature. She raised eyes. You propose Davos as Hand of Meereen. And in fact, though title, First Council if you insist, Stannis said. Stormlander by birth, but smuggler by trade. He knows hunger, corruption, the price of mercy. What of you? She asked. Will you leave city under his rule? I sail west. Determination flared. With you. The simple declaration ignited something hot in her chest. She dipped quill, signed Daenerys of House Targaryen in flowing Valyrian characters. Below, Stannis scrawled his angular name. Wax, seals, dragon, crowned stag inside fiery heart, pressed side by side. She studied fused discs of crimson and gold. They looked almost like two halves of same coin. That night, Meereen threw feast in Great Pyramid Gardens. Lanterns strung in citrus trees cast amber glow. Musicians plucked harps. Freedmen children danced chainless about reflecting pool. Platters of honeyed goat, spiced chickpea, and fresh flatbread scented air. Dragons roared occasionally from high perch, stirring guests into awed hush before revel resumed. Stannis walked among tables, nodding stiff thanks to toasts. He ate little, drank less, sour wine diluted with water. Yet he permitted a small smile when Shireen, freshly arrived with Maester Pylos aboard galleon, raced laughing with young freedmen as translator of Westerosi hymns. Her gray-patched cheeks flushed with warmth unknown in Dragonstone's keep. Watching her, he felt heaviness ease. Daenerys wore gown of red so dark, it seemed black until lanterns kissed silk to ember. Braided hair pinned with jade. She circulated, accepting thanks, listening to grievances. She found herself drawn inevitably to Stannis' orbit. Each time their paths converged, conversation quieted as the world contracted to stone solidity of him and flickering heat of her. At midpoint of festivities, a troop of fire dancers twirled torches. Children shrieked delight. The weeping dove, now prisoner, watched from balcony cell, guarded her tears smearing chalk on cheeks. She saw Stannis and Daenerys stand side by side as flames whirled reflection in their eyes. Late in night, revelers ebbed. Barristan escorted Shireen to chambers. Grey Worm oversaw dragon feeders. Davos discussed ledger rewrites with Miss Ande beneath avocado tree. Melisandre slipped through shadows toward rooftop for solitary prayer. Only the Queen and King remained by reflecting pool. Lanterns guttering. Water mirrored twin shapes. A woman forged by fire. A man tempered by steel. Above, stars scattered like hammered silver filings. Daenerys glanced across rippled image. Meereen breathes easier. Tomorrow, she will breathe on her own, Stannis said. He removed glove, dipped calloused fingers into pool. Ripples radiated. She watched circles widen. And us, forging, continues. He looked up. Wedding vows. Once, war ends here. She nodded. A fortnight, perhaps. Enough to lay keel of first grain ship. After, we sail for Dragonstone. Not King's Landing directly. Seize my former seat. Rally fleet at Blackwater Bay mouth. Your dragon's roost on Dragonmont. Ancestral to both our lines. Symbol enough to draw hearts of Westeros. She imagined black volcanic slopes. Dragons perched upon steaming vents. Banners of red gold stag beside three-headed dragon whipping salt wines. A stirring within chest like wing beats. And the north. The tales of white walkers multiply. Night gathers, he acknowledged. We need Winterfell's strength. Word of dragons may bring them south, or us north. The image of dragons soaring over shattered wall flashed in her mind. Ice beneath wings. A hush settled. Cicadas hummed. She spoke softly. Do you ever doubt? Every day, he said. Doubt is the whetstone, sharpening resolve. He turned, meeting her eyes. But I have ceased doubting you. Heat rose in her cheeks unexpected. She hid by looking over shoulder at distant silhouette of Drogon, perched upon Pyramid's peak, wings mantling against stars. Fire can scorch, wielder. Steel can cut handler. He stepped closer, voice low. Together we become sword and flame both. For a heartbeat she thought he would reach for her hand, but he did not. Yet the absence of touch felt more intimate than any grasp. She breathed. The night smelled of citrus, salt, and faint tinge of forge smoke drifting from harbor where carpenters still hammered keels. Hope carried scent of wood smoke here. Lanterns sputtered, extinguished. Shadows deepened, but she knew his shape beside her. Their reflections fused, indistinct. 2 weeks marched by in relentless cadence of hammer to nail, gavel to bench. Freedmen Council convened, argued, compromised. Davos mediated. Missandei transcribed. Grain routes opened. First Storm Targaryen trade cog, christened Unia's Dawn, slipped down harbor as dragons wheeled overhead. Hisdar petitioned for pit fight's return. Stannis' refusal bedrocked council. No blood sport under joint banners. Hisdar fumed, but bent. The Green Grace, confronted with temple treachery, rededicated central shrine to Trine of Mother, Stallion, and Red God, an uneasy pantheon but symbol of accord. In docks, Stormlander smiths forged new spearheads. Meereen's children learned Westerosi letters. Shireen taught Kiskari girls to read from Seven-Pointed Star. In return, they braided her hair with copper beads. Barristan drilled freedmen recruits, shaping first free company sworn to defend city in Queen's name. Daenerys and Stannis met nightly to review progress, sometimes alone, sometimes with others. Gradually, formal reports gave way to quiet discussion. then to shared wine, sipped sparse, then to walks along parapet. Trust threaded itself through them like gold wire through chain, flexible yet unbroken. Yet not all hearts warmed. Enslaved city of Yonkai, emissaries spat at sealed gates, vowing retribution. Across narrow sea, Lannister regents in King's Landing heard whispers of dragons allied with stag, of a fleet building. Ravens flew to Old Town, High Garden, Dreadfort, Eyrie. Alliances shifted like ice floes colliding in spring melt. In northmost reaches, beyond wall, night lingered longer. White sun, half hidden behind pallid cloud. Others stirred. Word of dragons riding salt wind reached even cold ears. Blue eyes watched southern horizons. But here, on brink of the Great Pyramid, wedding preparations unfolded. Barristan polished Valyrian blade for ceremonial guard. Missandei composed vows in common, Valyrian and Giscari, weaving oaths of duty and mutual sovereignty. Melisandre brewed oils scented with exotic resins for anointing both bride and groom by light of twin flames. Daenerys allowed seamstresses to fit gown of crimson, samite shot with threads of black, scaled pattern echoing dragon hide, yet cut in simple lines, reminiscent of Stormlander austerity. Stannis accepted cloak of black wool lined with silk, the color of dragonfire, clasped by brooch carved into half stag, half dragon. On eve before ceremony, city breathed hushed anticipation. Balconies draped banners, crowned stag on fiery heart beside three-headed dragon, sewn by tailors whose fingers yet bore scars from slave whips. Freedmen lit lanterns by thousands, each carrying hope afloat across canals like stars fallen to water. Daenerys stood in window of her solar, watching lantern constellations drift. She thought of Khalasar campfires, of Corv's ghost blossoms, of Astapor's red smoke. She felt lives braided into hers. Thralls, kings, warlocks, children, now braided again with Iron King of Stormlands. Knock at door. Missandei entered, carrying letters sealed in wax, stamped with odd sigil. A kraken entwined with lion's head. Daenerys opened parchment. Words sprawled in hurried script. Ironborn fleet sails for Meereen. Lannister gold funds sails. Intent unknown. She exhaled. War whispered beyond horizon once more. She turned to Missandei. Summon Stannis to council. Tomorrow's dawn may witness vows amidst thunder of drums. Stannis arrived clad in plain leather, crown absent. He read letter, jaw tightened. Ironborn reavers aided by Lannisters. They mean to burn harbor, cripple dragons before we sail. Daenerys paced. Drogon can strike ships, but cities' docks vulnerable. Grain cogs lined like tinder. We cannot abandon wedding, yet cannot let harbor burn. No, he considered. Stormlanders ready 2 galleys, Mount Scorpions. Unsullied man quay ballistae. Dragons patrol sky. He met her eyes. We wed at dawn still. Show city fear cannot mar hope. She hesitated. Am I selfish? Vows while battle looms. Hope is blade as well, he said. Let harbor see bride of flame and groom of steel stand unswayed. They will fight harder. He touched her arm, a first. I ride skiff to harbor after vows. Command defense. You on Drogon above. We meet Ironborn with flame and steel, proving alliance's worth. Nerdalidi, Wan, Shoisin. Contact of his hand sparked jolt. She nodded firm. Then dawn remains. He withdrew. She watched him leave, heart steadying not from calm, but from conflagration inside that radiated outward, forging courage. Fire and steel indeed. Ceremony dawn painted sky pearl gray. Plaza before pyramid transformed into Isle of Banners. Freedmen, Stormlanders, priests of R'hllor, Dothraki blood riders, Lazar shepherd chiefs, all gathered. Amid hush, Daenerys descended marble stair flanked by Barristan and Grey Worm. Drogon circled overhead, casting moving shadow across crowd like great black sail. At dais, Stannis waited in black cloak, crown of iron and ruby held by Shireen. Melisandre stood between twin brass braziers whose flames burned ruby red, though no oil fed them. On dais floor lay steel anvil upon which swordblade rested, Lightbringer, or forged promise of it, smithed from dragonstone steel, tempered in fires blessed by priestess. Melisandre's voice clear. Two flames brought, seeking to burn as one. She anointed Daenerys' brow with a drop of glowing oil that sizzled then vanished. Stannis received same. Crowd quiet, breaths suspended. Vows spoken in 3 tongues swore mutual sovereignty, promised to defend realms of men, share counsel and burden. Stannis' voice clipped yet resonant, Daenerys soft yet unwavering. At culmination, they grasped sword hilt together, lifted above anvil. Light shimmered along edge. Melisandre intoned, "One flame." Sword plunged into brazier flame. Steel glowed orange. They withdrew blade, touched its flat declasped hands, heat startling but bearable. Ruby flames leapt skyward behind them, startling gasps. Then Shireen draped half-dragon, half-stag cloak across their shoulders, pinning with brooch of combined sigil. Crowd erupted cheers. Bells rang from Harpy Towers newly repurposed. Dragons roared, wings thunder. Yet in harbor distance, horns blared low, war horns. Ironborn masts crested horizon like forest of spears. Stannis turned to Daenerys, voice low, but eyes alight. "Now we temper vow." She smiled fierce. "Now we burn." He kissed her, brief, solemn, sealing covenant, then broke away, striding down steps toward waiting skiff. Davos and Stormlander captains followed. Daenerys ascended Drogon's saddle, leather straps buckled by Missandei with trembling hands. Rhaegal and Viserion, sensing Mother's call for war, shrieked in catacombs, chains poised to break soon. Drogon launched. Wind roared. Below, city rallied. Unsullied jogging double time to quays, freedmen guard forming ranks along seawall. Bells that tolled marriage pealed anew an alarm. From above, Daenerys saw ironborn longships slicing waters, sleek black, sails emblazoned with golden kraken and crimson lion. At prow of lead ship, a figure in iron crown waved red banner stitched with golden hand. Euron? Victarion? Or some ambitious captain paid in Lannister coin? Either way, threat. Stannis' galleys churned wake to intercept, scorpion bolts loaded. He stood upon prow, cloak snapping, Lightbringer, still glowing faintly, clutched. Battle lines converged beneath rising sun, golden rays glinting off steel, rippling upon water churned by dragon's wingbeat. Daenerys drew deep breath, Drogon rumbled. Fire answered steel. The first yacht of dragonfire exploded against ironborn flagship mast. Sails ignited, black canvas turning orange inferno that cracked and sagged like parchment. Archers screamed, leapt into waves. Krakan's pride veered, struck broadside of companionship, entangling rigging. Drogon dived, claws rend deck planks, crews scattered. Below, Stannis' galley fury rammed another longship centerboard. Grapnels flung, Stormlanders boarded, steel rang. Stannis himself waded into melee, Lightbringer carving arcs of orange afterglow. With each swing men fell, some cut, others bludgeoned by fiery flat, terrified to touch burning edge. On quay, unsullied ballistae unleashed storms of heavy darts that punched through low freeboards, pinning oarsmen to benches. Freedmen hurled firepots, water steamed. Ironborn captain rallied from poop deck, bellowing curses. He leveled horn bow at Stannis, loosed arrow, It bounced from King's Gorget, grazing cheek. Stannis turned, eyes pits of volcanic fury. He vaulted rail, landed near Captain, parried axe stroke. 2 blows, then third split helm. Captain toppled into scuppers. Dragonfire consumed Avcastle, but Stannis pressed through heat, steering survivors towards surrenders. Meanwhile, Drogon soared, banking over cluster of ships turning to flee. But Daenerys held rein. She would not hunt broken prey. Let terror drive message west. She guided Drogon to edge of harbor, where flames licked water like sunrise on dark tide. Battle lasted half an hour. 8 long ships burned to waterline. 3 captured. Rest limped seaward, sails shredded. Way smoldered but intact. Grain ships, relocated earlier upon Stannis' foresight, lay safe upriver. When last Ironborn sail vanished, crowd upon seawall roared. Daenerys circled once more, ensuring no hidden threat, then guided Drogon to Pyramid Apex. Below, Stannis disembarked Fury, armor scorched, cloak singed, Lightbringer's glow fading as steel cooled. He looked upward. Dragon shadow crossed him like benediction. Crowd parted as he strode through docks. Greetings chorused. King of storm and flame, someone shouted. Title improvised. He ignored, but eyes narrowed, thoughtful. At Pyramid Courtyard they met again. Sweat, streak, soot smudged, but unbowed. She dismounted. He approached. They clasped forearms. Harbor holds, he said. Vows hold, she answered. Thunder of renewed cheers shook marble. Night that followed glowed with embers along quays where wreckage still smoked. Yet city sang an exultant, ragged hymn of hope. No feast this time. Instead, freedmen shared loaves and victories in alleyways lit by lanterns. Children scrawled dragons and stags upon walls with chalk pilfered from merchant stalls. In War Gallery, Daenerys and Stannis convened with council. Ironborn prisoners accounted, casualties tallied. Fury lost 15, Unsullied 6, freedmen 12, dragon none. Lazar caravans now quadrupled escort after display. Barristan unrolled fresh Westerosi map, dot to dot. Ravens intercepted early, told of Tyrell fleet mustering in Redwine Straits. Lannister coffers drained. Sellsword companies whispered of Dragonstag alliance seeking contracts. Stannis traced course across narrow sea. Sail at first fair wind. 10 grand cogs a company. Use captured ironborn hulls. Dragons stout ahead. Land at Dragonstone within moon. Daenerys nodded. Rhaegal and Viserion unchain when we depart. Let them earn sky before crossing. Meereen under Davos, Missandei, and Freedmen Council. Grey Worm remains with garrison of 500 unsullied until new guard train. Mashatit. Davos bowed. I will hold helm. Melisandre smiled, ruby flickering. The night shrinks before twin dawns of fire and steel. Yet winter's heart beats still. I see a wall of ice, a storm of dead. Lightbringer must shine brighter. Stannis gripped sword hilt. Let each battle temper blade. Daenerys stepped to map's edge, and hovering above coastline where Dragonstone lay like crouched dragon. I have chased thrones across deserts. Now I sail home, but I will not rule with fear alone. No sail away to chase a bully, nor with mercy alone, Stannis added. Balance, she agreed. He met her eyes. We forge it together. Outside, bells tolled a restful hour. She felt exhaustion weigh, yet deeper currents of purpose buoyed her. She extended hand. He clasped. Across contact, sparks of shared destiny leapt. Around them, council members witnessed union not of ceremony now, but of command. Dawn painted harbor when Union's dawn unfurled sails, first of fleet bound, eventually for Westeros. On pyramid steps, Daenerys and Stannis watched lines paid out. Wind snapped canvas. Dragons wheeled overhead, triumphant. She spoke under breath. 5 hours of vows, 15 minutes of battle. Already marriage proves eventful. He chuckled. Rare sound. Better forged under hammer than rust upon wall. They turned inland, descending to courtyard where Shireen practiced letters with Giscari children. The girl waved. They waved back. Daenerys whispered, "Our children may inherit realm cleansed of harpies and Lannisters." Stannis' brow lifted. "Children? Someday," she said, smiled teasing. "Fire and steel make strong alloy." He regarded her, gaze gentled by thought. "Yes, someday." They stepped forward, side by side, sun on backs, shadows merged on stone. City behind them breathed free. Sea before beckoned journeys yet untold. And above, dragons carved soaring, script across morning sky. Their own wordless vow that flame would ever ride with steel to shape the fate of kingdoms. The wheel had turned anew, its rims glowing hot from forge of alliance, ready to carve paths through snow and shadow alike. Dawn unfurled pale as parchment across Marine's harbor, when the Dragonstag fleet slipped its moorings on the springtide. Oars beat a measured cadence, rattling rigging echoed by the hollow thump of hearts that dared to hope. At pier's edge Daenerys stood in gleaming, scale-worked cuirass, the shade of garnets under oil. Wings of black silk draped her shoulders, clasped by a dragonstag brooch newly forged from Volantine gold. Her hair, braided into a crown, streamed silver in the offshore wind. Beside her Shireen waved a white kerchief, embroidered with a red heart. Davos stooped to murmur a last counsel. Grey Worm raised fist in silent salute. Stannis strode up the gangplank of the Fury, face set against fragrance of jasmine drifting from gardens he would not see blossom. He wore plate the color of dusk, Lightbringer belted at hip, though the blade lay dormant now, its pale edge reflecting only the molten gold of early sun. The Fury's deck thronged with seasoned Stormlanders and newly blooded freedmen volunteers who had sworn by salt, smoke, and Queen's favor. As the flagship eased into channel, drum beats signaled the rest. Union's dawn, storm righteous. The captured Kraken prows, now renamed Dragon Scourge, and Justice, rekindled. 18 grain cogs, under escort of 4 swift gallop. Above them Drogon circled, gigantic wings tilting shadows across water, like sails torn free of masts. Rhaegal and Viserion remained chained for now in Pyramid's courtyard, sobering reminder of the Queen's restraint and the city's fragile peace. Daenerys watched until hulls dwindled into specks, swallowed by the glittering horizon. Only when the last pennant dipped from view did she turn inland to the weightier task of leaving a legacy that could endure her absence. The narrow sea greeted the fleet with fickle temperament, days of glassy blue marred by sudden tempests that battered sails and hurled spray across decks. Yet spirits held. The union of banners seemed to weave invisible net of resolve across every plank. Nights glittered with unfamiliar constellations to freedmen who had never left Giscari coast. Stannis took them as omen that horizons could be redrawn for any soul stout enough to sail past fear. On the 4th night, as crescent moon hung like a scythe over silent swells, Daenerys walked the Fury's forecastle alone, save for Drogon drifting half a league off port bow, a darker shadow than wave or cloud. Salt wind teased strands free from her braid. In the hush, she smelled homecoming, not of dragonstone, which remained memory and ash dream, but of destiny distilling itself to flint-sharp certainty. Soft boot steps. Stannis emerged from companionway, cloak snapping. Quartermaster reports fair wind will carry us past stepstones by dawn, he said. He leaned elbows on rail beside her, gaze fixed forward where stars dissolved into velvet nothing. How does the crew fare? She asked. Tired? but proud. Freedmen pull alongside Stormlanders without falter. When fear bled yesterday from that snapped topmast, none shrank. They lashed, hauled, and sang. A grudging admiration roughened his voice. You taught slaves to be iron. They taught themselves once chains fell, she corrected. Silence stretched, companionable as firelit watch. Far off, a pod of whales breached, their backs silvered by moonlight. Exhaled plumes glistened like ghostly banners. Stannis spoke low. When we reach Dragonstone, we hold ground cleaved from my blood and yours. But King's Landing will not yield to symbols alone. Lannister coffers may be lighter, yet gold buys longer than honor. She nodded. The city starves behind rose and lion walls, but hunger often serves tyrants as well as rebels. We must offer bread, not only dragonfire. Grain cogs carry hope, he agreed. Then, quieter. And Lightbringer must blaze. She studied him sidelong. The sword awakened only at your wedding pledge. No wildfire, nor priest's trick has sparked it since. Faith waxes, wanes. He flexed scarred hands. Perhaps battle for realm will feed its flame. Or union of wills, she murmured. He met her gaze, steel to flame. Something passed unspoken, as tangible as heat radiating from dragon's breath. Then he inclined head, duty reclaiming expression. Rest, your grace. Weather may sour at Stonehelm shoals. One told. Good night, my king, she answered softly, and returned below to cabin where maps of Westeros lay unfurled like challenges yet to be measured. Stonehelm shoals proved treacherous indeed. Spires of basalt jutted beneath surface like jagged teeth. Sudden squall whipped from east, driving fleet into labyrinth of hidden reefs. Orders cracked through rain-lashed dark helms spun. Sailors cursed and prayed in half-dozen tongues. On Union's dawn, mainmast rigging snapped, canvas bellied, threatening to drag vessel broadside onto rocks. Stannis, drawn by distress whistle, had fury heave within rope throw distance. Under barrage of sleet, he led boarding party across slippery planks, Lightbringer glimmering faintly as if stoked by crisis. Together with freedman Basans, he cut fouled lines, spliced stays, rigged storm trysail. Water churned within arm's reach of Black Stone Peak. Daenerys circled above on Drogon, pouring flame in sweeping arcs to burn off souls of darkness. Firelight granting momentary noon so helmsmen might glimpse lethal shoals and steer. With sails steadied, Union's dawn limped clear. Only one cog lost. Gracious yield, hold beyond saving, crew rescued to other decks. When gale subsided, sailors spoke in reverent hush of king who lashed ropes himself, of queen whose dragon turned night to daylight. Morale once chilled by sleet blazed anew. They sighted Dragonstone at last, beneath a bruised dust, the island rearing from slate sea like an ancient worm curled round newborn flame. Black volcanic ribs, twisted towers carved into dragon jaws, smoke pluming from Dragonmont's hidden vents. Stannis' heart clenched at sight of weather-beaten battlements he had not trod since abandoning under Onion Night of desperation. For Daenerys it stirred childhood ghost tales, Viserys fevered recitations, Mother's deathbed whispered of raging sea and basalt cradle. Fire beacons blazed on parapets, loyal garrison of few hundred men who had held in Stannis' name, shocked to see dragons loom above, yet cheering when King's banner flew beside triple-headed red. The Fury anchored in Blackwater Bay mouth, boats ferried captains ashore. Ash-colored sand crunched under boots, sulphur-scented air mingled with brine. Shireen clasped her father's gloved hand, eyes wide at carved gargoyles drooling petrified flame. "Hide!" Welcoming party knelt in courtyard. Sir Roland Storm, bastard of Night Song, Lady Selise, stern lips tight, but eyes bright at husband's return. Maester Pylos, bowing until chain clink. Lamps cast trembling halos across their faces. Daenerys dismounted from Drogon outside parapet. He clambered onto crags of Dragonmont to roar dominion at wind-swept sky, as if recognizing ancestral seat. Rhaegal and Viserion, flown from Meereen 2 days prior, already circled smoke vents, jubilant growls echoing through hollow lava tubes. Inside Great Hall, banners unfurled anew, crowned stag within heart. A flame hung opposite Red Dragon, breathing black. The hearth crackled with cedar logs freighted from rainwood. Over simple supper, fish chowder, brown bread, rust wine, Daenerys and Stannis detailed voyages, perils to assembled lords and captains. Selisa listened, unblinking, to talk of wedding. Her curt nod signaled acceptance, shaped more by faith than warmth. However, when Shireen described Daenerys' kindness in teaching her Valyrian lullaby, Lady Salisa's stern lines softened a fraction. Later, alone on parapet, Daenerys sensed watchers from every arrow slit, Stormlander guards weighing Dragon Queen against lingering whispers of Mad King. She refused to cower, letting wind whip cloak while eyes roamed moonlit sea, where distant lanterns of Tyrell patrol flickered. Somewhere beyond horizon, Cersei's spies would carry word of arrival before crows could freeze in wall shadow. Stannis joined her, stepped slow from exhaustion yet spine straight as drawbridge chain. Below them, smithy hammers rang, late forging scorpion bolts. Dragonstow's forges now served dual masters. "Tomorrow we send ravens," he said. "One to White Harbor seeking Stark allegiance, one to River Run entreating Tully. Northern blood still bristles at Lannister chains." She nodded. "And a third, to Old Town. The High Towers venerate ancient knowledge. Dragons in their sky may recall old pacts with Aegon. No, oh no." Tyrell hands choke High Tower purses. Then we pry fingers open with promise of grain. She watched waves beat cliff. Food winds hearts as swift as banners. Lightning flared far south, silent. Storm brewing in stepstones again. Stannis' profile etched in stark lines by flash. Cersei will not await siege. She'll strike sea lanes or attempt assassination. I have tasted poison before. Daenerys touched lip, where memory of Quoth's manticore still tingled phantom. "Let her try." He placed calloused hand over hers, resting on cold stone. "We'll guard you. Realm has need." She allowed fingers to curl into his, warmth pooling between. "And you. Flames cannot temper themselves." Above, Drogon beat wings, gliding over battlements, scattering ravens in black flurry. 2 monarchs watched silhouette pass across moon, a herald of new age. Dragonstone sprang to life. Shipwrights swarmed dry docks under Roland Storm's hand, repairing captured Kraken hulls. Freedmen carpenters marveled at pine beams from Storm's End forests, learning joinery tricks that spliced eastern speed with western sturdiness. Spices from Meereenese holds seeped into kitchens. Saffron-scented stews now mingled with eel pies, forging culinary peace ahead of political. Inside map room, Stannis pored over chessboard of Westeros. Wooden keeps moved like pieces of war. Davos argued for quick thrust up Blackwater to cut Lannister throat. Barristan counseled steady recruitment of crown lands, small folk. Daenerys insisted on parley with Stormlander houses still sworn to Tommen. Boros, Estermont, Wilding. Appeal to their sense of Baratheon legitimacy and dragon strength combined. Letters flew by Raven. Some wings returned, tipping black wax of refusal, others gray of caution. More than a few broke from sky under unseen archers. Cersei's reached long. Yet responses trickled. Sir Brian Ferring rode with 200 knights to Dragonstone. Lady Arwen Oakhart dispatched gold and grain. Lord Wyman Manderley's missive arrived, swaddled in wolf seal, pledging White Harbor fleet once the dragon proved her flame against dead walking room. That rumor flapped southwards like chill wind. Wildling scouts at Shadow Tower claimed dead things stirring in haunted forest, gathering beneath pale banners of no heraldry. Melisandre, standing before Dragonstone's lordly hearth, saw a vision of icy crown cracked by sword of living flame. She pressed Stannis to march north after King's Landing fell. The king listened, lines carving deeper on face, weighing which storm must be weathered first. One dawn, a rusted merchant cog limped into Driftmark, with single survivor babbling of silver-green sea, filled with dead men pulling ships beneath. Dragonstone's maester dismissed as delirium of exposure, yet Davos' memories of Blackwater ghosts tightened his gut. He quietly ordered double watch on sea walls. 7 weeks after landfall, banners of Crane fell, and Swan approached under peace penance. Lords bore grudging curiosity for Dragon Queen, who wed Iron King. The parley unfolded in Dragonstone's throne room, under obsidian gargoyles. Daenerys sat upon carved basalt chair. Stannis stood sentinel at her side. She spoke of children burnt under lion siege engines, of fields salted by Iron Throne levies, of a realm where winter's breath threatened to snuff every heart. She offered grain, justice, and a seat on small council for Stormland's voice. Lord Eldon's Swan, hawk-eyed, demanded proof of Lannister treachery beyond rumor. Davos stepped forth, produced ledgers seized from Marine Harbor, the same connecting Yunkai slavers to Casterly Rock gold. Names of Stormlander captives sold for ransom, scrawled in Tycho Nestoris's meticulous Braavosi hand. Gasps rippled. Lord Swan's mouth hardened. He knelt, offering sword. Others followed. Not all yielded. Raven banners of House Wild withdrew to Rainhouse, raising black within a fortnight. Scouts reported ravenry of Casterly's spies roosting there. Stannis dispatched Ser Roland with 500 to encircle Cape and starve them. Dragons circled overhead. Wild banners fell by moons turning. While politics spun, Daenerys spent hours atop Dragonmon's wind-blasted saddle training Rhaegal and Viserion for formation flight. Drogon, dominant, kept siblings in restless line. Valyrian horns carved from dragonbone signaled commands: bank, dive, flame, perch. Queen's shouts whipped across lava vents, echoing eerily in molten chambers below. Stormlander archers gaped from ramparts at fiery ballet, bolts left unfired lest they test myth. Rumor traveled faster than Raven. The Dragon Queen commanded not one, but 3 living furnaces. One morning, Shireen climbed path to watch, cloaked against sulfur winds. At sight of scarred girl, Viserion ceased snarling. Cocked head. Shireen extended gloved hand. Golden cream snout sniffed, exhaled smoke puff that tousled her hair. Daenerys watched, heart snared. Perhaps dragons sensed shared survival of grayscale, or glimpsed pure courage beneath timid demeanor. She allowed child to feed sliver of mutton. Viserion's rumble vibrated cliff like distant thunder. Word spread, dragons favored Baratheon blood. Omen debated by port chaplains and smithy apprentices alike. When first flakes of unseasonal frost dusted castle ramparts, an omen carried on north winds. Scouts sighted green and gold sails of red wine fleet, slipping from Mander estuary. Tyrells moved finally, perhaps to bottle Blackwater and starve Dragonstone. Yet reports differed, half turned toward Arbor, others toward Storm's End. Ravens, frantic. Daenerys convened war council. Roland Storm argued holdfast defense. Davos urged Night Raid to sabotage supply galleys. Barristan favored negotiation. Reachmen bled under Lannister taxes. They might break away if offered clemency for Margaery, still prisoner. Stannis listened, then pointed to map. We sail swift and strike where they least expect, Sell her his coast, take grain from Tyrell levies, feed our march, show them we can scorch fields yet choose not. Mercy wielded like dagger. Eyes turned to Daenerys. She laid palm on table. I will fly ahead, parley with Willis Tyrell at Highgarden. If roses prefer peace, realm gains harvest. If they stall, dragons will scorch only empty fields to prove we could burn more. No. Risky, yet storm and flame thrived on risk. Within 2 days, Drogon bore her south along sea line. Rhaegal shadowed, Viserion guarded supply cogs. She alighted first upon Old Town's high tower balcony, startling maesters. Archmaester Leighton narrowly avoided apoplexy. She spoke of alliances, White Walkers, libraries needed to wage war on death itself. Leighton, whose candlelit sanctum rumored contact with glass candle visions, pledged scholarship and healing in return for dragons warding sea against Ironborn. From Old Town she rode to Highgarden, fields of gold stretching below like summer's memory. Tyrell banners wavered, soldiers lined walls, bows lowered but strings taut. Daenerys landed in Rose Garden where Willis Tyrell waited in wheeled chair. Attendant Hawk perched on gauntlet. His mild eyes belied keen mind. He greeted Queen courteously, offered honey wine, listened while she spoke of forging peace anew. Willis confessed disdain for Cersei's cruelty, fear for Margaery's life, suspicion of Lannister debts deepening day by day. Yet he could not turn armies without proof dragons would not raise reach fields. They fed Westeros through winter. Daenerys proposed pact. Tyrell grain to King's Landing convoys would be diverted to Crown Land's small folk. One city fell, dragons would spare fields. In return, Highgarden would withhold swords until Targaryen Baratheon banner reached gates, then rise in revolt. Willis extended rose stem, thorns trimmed. Let this promise bleed no one until necessary. She accepted bloom, petals velvety against callous dragon rider fingers. Returning to Dragonstone, she brought letters sealed with golden rose. Meanwhile, in shadowed chambers beneath Red Keep, Cersei smashed goblet against tapestry when ravens squawked of dragon queen courting reach. Qyburn urged patience, unveiling new secret. Massive scorpion ballista fashioned of black steel, salvaged from city vaults, string wound from wyvern sinew, shipped illegally from Basilisk Isles, mounted on great tower above Sept rubble. It could hurl spear thrice length of Ares' throne, head tipped with obsidian. Cersei smiled like winter's starving lamb. She dispatched Sir Balon Swan with honeyed letters to Dorne, promising vengeance for Elia if Martells remained neutral. She sent Euron Greyjoy golden fetters urging second rape. But Kraken Lord now doubted. Rumors of dragonfire crisping kin cooled his ardor. He demanded marriage in exchange. Cersei balked, though hunger for fleet gnawed. Back at Dragonstone, ravens returned from Winterfell at last. Lady Sansa Stark, now ruling in Jon Snow's absence. He had ridden beyond wall on ranging, offered guarded cooperation if dragons would not scorch northern forests. More crucially, she requested dragonglass, rumored lethal to whites, and knowledge of Valyrian forge to shape blades. Daenerys responded with promise of crates mined from Dragonstone caves, along with stonemasons to teach carving. She remembered Samwell Tarly's timid confidence years past in Old Town, telling her there lay mountains of dragonglass beneath castle. Now prophecy and necessity align. Melisandre, hands folded over ruby, declared its sign the Lord of Light guided them toward true darkness. Yet when she gazed into Brazier that night, flames showed flicker of Jon Snow atop wall, sword shining pale in moonlight, ghost white direwolf at side, and a girl of obsidian eyes wielding burning blade of her own forging. Priestess frowned, uncertain which ember portended Azor Ahai anew. She sought audience with Stannis. In hidden crypt, lit by red candles, she confessed prophecy no longer certain. Lightbringer, may require sacrifice. Stannis' jaw clenched. We have sacrificed enough. Let victory be its own fire. Melisandre's eyes glittered. The Lord may yet call for king's blood. He silenced her with raised palm. My daughter is under my protection. Mention this again, and you join ashes of traitors. Priestess's smile chilled. Flame decides. She melted back into corridors, leaving scent of smoke and foreboding. Shireen, reading history in solar, later found father staring from window at distant red glow of forge, fists trembling. He smiled for her, but worry nested deep. Spring tipped toward summer, yet air carried bite unnatural. At dusk watch saw aurora ripple faint green across northern sky. A phenomenon unseen this far south for generations. Small folk whispered of others dancing. Sailors swore water temps fell. In Dragonstone's great yard, buckets froze thin skim before dawn, though sun burned bright by noon. Council convened again. Barristan urged swift strike on capital before Winterlock space. Davos seconded, citing Tyrell hedging time. Stannis slammed fist. We sail within fortnight. Daenerys agreed. Dragons grow restless. King's Landing waits. Preparations accelerated. Stormlanders mustered 6,000 spears. Reached levies quietly delayed departure under pretense of harvest. White Harbor Fleet sailed south, carrying 2,000 Northmen to join at Massey's Hook. Dornish emissary arrived with blood-red snakes stamped on parchments. Prince Trystane offered neutrality, provided sandship convoys remained unmolested. A small win. On eve of departure, Daenerys visited dragon caves deep within Dragonmont. Crystallized shards of dragonglass glittered in torchlight. Purple, black, smoky white. Miners hewed blocks. Smiths experimented with folding into arrowheads. She pressed palm to cool glass. Echo of ancient pulses traveled up wrist. Fire sleeping inside stone. Behind, soft footfalls. Stannis entered, helmet tucked beneath arm. We sailed on. Wanted you to see this. He gestured to wagon canvas. Soldiers peeled back, revealing cannon-like steel tubes strapped upon swivel mounts. Davos tinkers, adapting Giscari harpoons into deck-mounted scorpions. Bolts tipped with dragon glass. For whites, Stannis said. If tales prove true, we will not stand unarmed. She traced bolt head. The glass drank torchlight, shimmered with inner dusk. We turn deadliest stone against death itself. Aye, but alive foes wait first. She met his gaze, pupils reflecting coals. We crush Cersei quickly. The longer we tarry, the more night rises. He nodded grim. Then let morning bring war. She stepped close, placed hand on cheek, newly lined by sea wind. Whatever dawn demands, we face together. He covered her hand with his. Their foreheads touched, brief and resolute. No tender words. Unnecessary. Purpose soldered hearts stronger than vow. At first blush of sunrise, the dragon stag host poured from Dragonstone like molten iron cast into sea. Galleys lined in vanguard. Cog convoy astern laden with grain for starving riverlands. Above, 3 dragons streaked. Black, green, cream, sun glinting off veins, roars rolling across water. On flagship deck, Daenerys stood helmside, hair whipped halo, while Stannis barked orders to sailing master. Past driftmark they caught on shore breeze, sails bellied. By midday gannets soared overhead, following school of mackerel beneath turquoise waves. Northwest lay Blackwater Rush mouth, where burned wrecks of Blackwater Bay still poked like fingers asking for alms. Memory of wildfire still haunted currents, green sheen against hulls at midday sun. Yet something else shimmered ahead, dark shapes bobbing, too many for driftwood. Lookouts cried alarm. Wreckage? No, Rowboats in ragged line, rag-clad refugees waving torn cloths. Stormlander cutters diverted. Sailors hauled aboard, gaunt figures, eyes sunken. They spoke of King's Landing riots, bread riots turned slaughters, gold cloaks deserting posts, lion banners torn from towers, Tyrell wagons seized by starving mobs. Cersei had quartered sellswords in Septry district. In frenzy, they looted, set fire. Blaze consumed half Flea Bottom before dying under lack of water. Rumor claimed High Septon hung from tower window for preaching restraint. Red Keep sealed, Scorpion Ballista perched like dragon killer above charred sept stones. People prayed for deliverance. Daenerys' jaw set. Stannis' lips pressed white. Orders snapped. Full sail. But tide drew more dire tidings. Coverage of green water parted to reveal hulks. Dozens of small carracks, anchored irregular across bay mouth. Banners unknown fluttered. Blackfield red starburst, a sellsword armada bought by Cersei from Lys and Myr. Their formation suggested trap. Scorpions bristled, flame pots lit. Stannis called war council on Fury's quarterdeck. Barristan recommended night attack with dragonfire to punch breach. Davos proposed feint with grain cogs to lure mercenaries into shallows. Then, ignite, pitch, slick. Daenerys contemplated straight dragon strike, but worried for fleet behind. She mounted Drogon, surveyed lines from sky. Enemy hulls spaced in crescent, leaving narrow corridor near mouth of rush where current ripped fastest. She returned, cloak snapping. I fly first. Break Scorpion cruise, O Terra. Fury and storm, righteous charge corridor. Cogs follow once lane clear. Stannis objected, too exposed. She countered. Dragons strike swift. Scorpions clumsy. Resolve met steel eyes. He ceded. Afternoon waned into copper dusk when war began. Dragons dived from sun, talons ripping masts. Flame gouting across decks. Scorpion bolts hissed. Some glanced off scaled hide, leaving white lines. One shard of obsidian cut Drogon's. Winged joint, but lodged shallow. Fury unquenched. Meanwhile, galleys under Stannis rode full tilt into corridor. Davos steered storm righteous close under lighthouse ruins. Arrows whistling overhead. Grain cogs crept behind. Decks blanketed with damp sailcloth against fire. Drogon's first blast turned flagship of sellsword admiral into inferno. Sailors leapt screaming into sea, now simmering with burning pitch. Rhaegal and Viserion harried flanks, tails smashing scorpion frames. Within quarter-hour mercenary line faltered, half ablaze, half drifting as crews abandoned posts. But hidden within smoke lurked Cersei's secret, the black steel giant Scorpion, mounted atop water tower recently erected on shore battery isle. As Drogon wheeled for another pass, lever ratcheted, cable thrummed. Obsidian-tipped spear, the length of ballista shot, shrieked skyward. Warning roar from Rhaegal echoed, but too late. Bolt pierced Drogon's right shoulder. Exit wound, opening geyser of crimson flame-tinged blood. Shock screamed through bond. Daenerys felt white-hot lance sear her chest. Drogon stumbled mid-air, wings faltering. He veered, barely clearing mast, before crashing onto sandbar jutting from bay. Surf hissed around enormous form. On Fury's deck, Stannis witnessed Dragon fall. His face paled not in fear but in calculation. Blow to morale catastrophic unless reversed instantly. He snapped to boatswain, hard to starboard, beach on that bar. Victory demanded risks. Galleys pivoted, keels scraping shallow. Stormlanders disembarked knee-deep, wading toward downed dragon, where sellsword skirmishers already converged, hoping to finish legendary beast. Daenerys lay stunned in saddle, smoke curling from leathers, heartbeat hammered by pain, echoing dragons. Drogon writhed, tail lashing, claws gouging sand. Stannis plunged through surf, Lightbringer drawn. Its edge, tasting crisis, flickered orange again. He carved path up Dragon's flank, cutting down 2 bravos who sought Queen's head for bounty. Reaching saddle, he grasped Daenerys' arm, hauled her clear of slick blood. She gasped, but pushed away. "Help him first," she croaked. Bold shaft protruded 6 feet, obsidian head buried in sand beyond. With help of shipwrights saw hastily fetched, Stormlander Carpenter's severed shaft flushed to scales. Drogon's roar shook bones. Stannis braced 3 men to grip exposed steel, counted breath, then wrenched. Obsidian barb tore free. Torrent of black-red blood gushed, sizzling foam. Daenerys pressed hand over wound, whispered guttural Valyrian command. Drogon heaved, nostrils flaring, then coughed plume of flame into sunset sky. His wings unfurled, oh torn, they beat. From harbor mouth, mercenary horns sounded retreat, seeing dragon rise anew, and Baratheon king glowing sword. Fury and storm, righteous pressed, ramming crippled carracks. Grain cogs slipped into cleared lane, anchored within black water, downstream of city walls before nightfall. On sandbar, under rising moon, Daenerys sagged against Drogon's shoulder, exhaustion tremoring. Stannis knelt beside, hands still tacky with dragon blood reflecting blades dim ember. Their eyes met, recognition, that bond now tempered by shared wound. Injury not fatal, Maester declared after examination. Dragonfire cauterized flesh, but strength needed days. They would attack walls soon, but now whole. Night draped bay in smoke, and ghost green wildfire glints. On deck of Fury makeshift infirmary, Daenerys slept fitful. Stannis kept vigil outside, Lightbringer planted point down, glow guttering like watchfire. Davos approached, voice low. City under siege of its own hunger, riots tonight again. Stannis nodded. At first light we send envoy under white banner. Offer bread for gates. You expect Cersei to parley? Davos asked. No, but starving city may. He gazed at red keep silhouette. Scorpion tower lowered to reload. Everyday walls hold. Threat from north grows. Might be worth reaching out to King's Landing's faith militant, Davos mused. They loathe Cersei for Septi's fall. Arrange. Footsteps soft. Shireen approached, clutching bundle of cloth. She presented to father. Small tabard sewn with merged sigils. Stag and dragon entwined around blazing sword. For tomorrow, she said shyly. Stannis' stern mien melted rare smile. He draped cloth over shoulder, medal of innocence. Inside cabin, Daenerys dreamed of wall fracturing under blue flame. Whites poured across, Northmen's circle of dragonglass spears. A wolf with burning eyes leapt, merging into man with sword shining like dawn. The same sword Lightbringer, yet brighter, forged of living flame. She woke sweating, took quill, pen note to Jon Snow at Castle Black. We sail for throne, but ears remain for North's cry. Send word. She sealed with wax, pressed signet. Raven flew at dawn. Daylight revealed desperate city. From high vantage on Bluff Hill, Stannis and Daenerys saw crowds cluster along docks, shouting pleas, while gold cloaks barred with shields. Smoke rose where bakeries torched. Bell tower leaning, after riot still told irregular. Scorpion on water tower turned, tracking dragons languid above yet not firing, perhaps awaiting Queen's approach. Envoys marched beneath white barred green banner, color of new peace, bearing wagons stacked with bread and salted fish. Faith, militant sparrows parted crowd, escorted to Mud Gate. High Septon dead, but Septa Lemore now led flock. She listened as Davos offered grain for surrender of city and Queen's justice spared to small folk. She knelt, weeping gratitude. Gold cloaks hesitated, their pay in arrears, loyalty threadbare. When city's bell clanged thrice, signal long agreed for riot mass, they opened gate, pretending parley but letting mobs surge, overrunning them and scramble for bread. By midday wagons empty, riot cooled in chewing jaws. Within walls, cells words defected en masse. Cersei responded by executing 4 captains, parading heads upon spikes along Red Keep. Crowd booed, stones flew. Red cloaks fired crossbows into rabble. Seeds of capitulation sprouted. That night, Queen's Justice, scout galley, slipped along river, Davos aboard, to bribe remaining gold cloak commanders with pardons and coin. Many yielded. Meanwhile, under cover of moon, gray cloak shadows scaled tower of faces, disabling counterweight of massive scorpion, while Rhaegal glided silent above. By dawn, Siegengin lay twisted ruin. With outer defenses trembling, Stannis convened war council. Attack plan simple. Landward armies under Rollenstorm and Brian faring assault Lion Gate. Dragons scorched trebuchets. Naval archers suppress battlements. But Daenerys insisted, if gates open from inside, fewer innocents burn. She chose infiltration. Led by Jorah Mormont, arrived earlier with Northmen. Small team of Unsullied disguised as merchants carried grain sacks, concealing weapons. They slipped through Mud Gate day 8, took control of Winch House. At sunset gates yawned wide. Dragon banners flooded streets alongside sparrow flocks, chanting hymns to Mother. Cersei ordered wildfire pots hurled from ramparts, but crews mutinied. Red Keep sealed. Stannis advanced at head of column, through Street of Sisters, Lightbringer Aglo, before throngs kneeling. Daenerys rode pale mare behind, Drogon limping but present, roar vibrating rooftops. They found gates to Maegor's holdfast barred. Scorpions dismantled, garrison meager. Stannis demanded surrender. From atop wall, Qyburn, robed black, hissed refusal. No sign of Cersei. Jorah reported tunnel beneath Sept Yard leading under keep, known to him from exile. Grey Worm led squad. They emerged within cellar, securing portcullis. At dawn 10th day, Red Keep opened. Cersei, crowned in gilded steel, backed by handful of Queen's Guard, awaited in throne room. Her eyes wild yet cold. She accused Daenerys of same madness as father. Called Stannis usurper of Tommen's rightful seat. Spat that realm would burn before yielding. Daenerys stepped forward, no weapon drawn. Realm burns already under your spite. She offered to send Cersei to join Myrcella in peaceful exile across narrow sea. Lannister Queen laughed, hollow. I choose Lion's End. She drew dagger, lunged. Barristan intercepted, disarmed. Cersei fought like cornered cat, scratching, biting. Finally, exhausted, she collapsed at foot of melted swords. Stannis pronounced sentence, confinement in Dragonstone's cell until trial. But Daenerys, remembering mercy's cost, pressed for counsel. They agreed, keep Cersei alive as bargaining chip with Jaime, leading Lannister host holding Riverlands. Raven dispatched. Throne room fell silent, but for crackle of torches. Targaryen banners raised, Baratheon stag spread hot flame above. Small folk within courtyard cheered until voices cracked. Yet Daenerys, seated on Iron Throne, first time, felt iron cold. Her dream fulfilled, tasted like sorrow of streets, littered with corpses, smell of burnt pitch. She looked to Stannis, standing sentinel, his face grim, yet eyes warmed by victory earned. He knelt one knee. The realm is yours, my queen. She extended hand, drew him up. Ours, fire and steel together. She looked northward, where winds wailed down alleys carrying distant howl, not of wolves, but of something older, colder. And winter comes. In weeks that followed, councils reforged governance. Dire levies marched east under Willis Banner, now ally. White Harbor Fleet escorted grain upriver, feeding tens of thousands. Dornish wine flowed in celebration, but measured, war not done. Jaime Lannister, camped near Riverrun, received Raven-bearing sister's fate. His host hesitated between rage and relief. Within Red Keep, Pitts uncovered caches of wildfire laid by Mad King. Daenerys shivered at ghosts of father's paranoia. She ordered alchemists to dismantle stocks, douse flames forever. On ramparts, she and Stannis watched green vials smashed into vats of sand, neutralized. Symbolic purging of old tyranny. But ravens arriving from Wall chilled blood. Jon Snow had returned with company of wildlings, and reported breach at Eastwatch. Army of dead assembling, giants of ice leading throng. They marched south of Wall, through Shattered Gate, courtesy of undead dragon. Viserion's corpse stolen during voyage. No, name unknown, ancient bones perhaps. Nonetheless, doom marched. Castle Black requested aid. Dragonglass, fire, living. Council debated. Some argued secure realm first. Stannis slammed fist. Without realm of living, there is no realm to secure. Daenerys agreed. She would fly dragons north. Stannis lead ground host from King's Landing up King's Road to Winterfell. Gather every spear. Davos remain hand in capital. Brian Farring oversee grain routes. Tyrells hold Riverland's flank. Tyrion begged to accompany father. He refused, voice thick, commanding she learn governance. She swore to rule justly in absence. Preparations swift. Rhaegal and Viserion fully healed. Drogon's wing scarred but strong. Daenerys kissed Stannis atop battlement as dawn reddened sky. No courtiers to witness save sun and wind. Lightbringer will blaze for you, she whispered, and dragon fire for you. He rested forehead to hers, promise forged in blood and flame. Dragons launched, wings fanning hope across realm. Below, horns sounded as Baratheon Targaryen banners, unfurled over columns marching north, steel resonating like heartbeat of new age. Their path would cross ice and shadow, love and sacrifice. Tales yet unwritten etched themselves upon horizon where red dawn met white storm. But for now, two rulers, born of opposite elements, had welded shards of broken kingdoms into blade, bright enough to challenge night itself. And that blade, tempered in harbor fire, quenched in dragon blood, sharpened upon Iron Throne's edges, now rose toward sky, ready to cleave the darkness awaiting beyond Wall.